Hello friends, welcome back for another part of Oxygen Not Included's walkthrough. Especially, well, I guess particularly for the base game. Especially for the base game! What we're going to be talking about here is kind of where we left off from last time. We were setting up our ranching last time, and I still had some things that I needed to hook up before everything was done. And I may have gone over it a little bit fast, and this is one of the more complicated sections of getting shipping and automation in here. So let's kind of review that really fast just to make sure that we know what all is set up. So first of all, we set up our shipping network earlier, and we set up 3 new bins. One of these bins is going to be sending sandstone and sedimentary rock into the chambers where the hatches are, so they can eat that and turn that into coal. So there's that flowing right now. Anything that is being picked up in here by these conveyor loaders is going to be everything except for sandstone and sedimentary rock. So that just sits on the ground in here. If these hatches put out eggs or coal or something like that, then it will just get sent back into my network and sent somewhere else. In the event that it's coal, it's going to get sent through this conveyor loader and down to my power systems so that it can be automatically loaded into my generators. And if we have if they make any eggs, those are going to be sent through here. I just have it set to accept the hatchling eggs. Once we get stone hatchling eggs, I'll also check it here so that stone hatchlings can also be integrated into this population. So they both kind of do the same thing. There are a couple of other types of hatches, but we're not going to worry about those too much in this run. And then this last bin, oh, by the way, if I do get any hatchling or stone hatchling eggs, it's going to follow this bottom line here, if you could just kind of follow along. It will be dropped into this room if there are less than 8 eggs here, and that is done via a critter sensor connected up to the conveyor chute. If that's closed, it will pass this. It'll go over this one, which is basically to force it down this direction of the line, into this room where they will be drowned. So once these eggs hatch, as soon as they hatch into something, they will be drowned and turned into meat, and then I can immediately turn that into barbecue and eat it. If these rooms need to be resupplied, I do have critter drop-offs here that say each of these rooms can hold 8, because a room of this size can hold 8 of these hatches without them getting uncomfortable or anything like that. Also, I do have critter sensors that are hooked up the same way, so if they're below 8 on either one of them, they will send a signal through this OR gate connected to a nut, which is finally connected to a door, which allows me to move more in there. So when these eggs hatch, they'll turn into hatchlings or full-size hatches. As soon as they can be moved from one point or the other, my duplicates will come in here and wrangle them and move them automatically. So that is the whole setup. I'm just getting the last of this set up with some salt water. I need to move this since that just barely ran out. So I just wanted to kind of show you that setup all in action, because the last video we kind of went through it a little bit fast and didn't see it all working, but I do want to recap this and make sure that you do see those setups in action. Now, what we do need to do is get our Great Hall area expanded, because right now it can only hold 8 duplicates, and rather than just building another room, I'm going to build it out along with this area, which is going to be my nature reserve. So like we talked about at the beginning of the game, I saved all these plants on purpose so that I could create a special room, which is this one, the nature reserve. You need at least 4 wild plants, a park sign, and a minimum size of 32 tiles in your room. So I think this should all be spaced out pretty decently. We can try it out and see if this works. But if I set up something like this, I know that I'm going to have my duplicates walking through this room, but I don't necessarily need them walking where the plants are. I could have it up a little bit higher. So maybe something like this. And then I can get rid of one of these plants. I don't necessarily need that one. I'll just make this into like a door and a wall here. And then my duplicates, when they come in, will just need to come through a door like that. So your room doesn't always have to have the doors right on the ground. If it's more convenient for them to travel through just on ladders, this all still counts as room space, so I might as well just do that. Again, be very careful not to dig this out or uproot these plants. Then finally, we just need 1 space here. We only need 4 plants here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to grab, well, actually I can just delete this. Right? Yeah, this is probably the... no, let me cancel this. I do need a space for putting my park sign down, so I'll just put it on a metal tile or a mesh tile like that. Let me clear all these alerts for new things that have been done researching. get him out of here. Like I mentioned with your research, just keep it going. There will be a point where your research is way ahead of when you can actually use it, and we've been at that point for a little while, but it is good to at least get it out of the way. Then your researcher can be busy doing other things. I'm going to place this park sign in here, and then I'm going to close up the rest of this room, and this will turn into our nature reserve. So we'll get this going here really quick. We need a way out, so let's make enough space for a door. Again, with any of these doors, unless you're planning on keeping critters in there, you can just set them to be open. And then we'll see how big this room is. I think it's pretty close to the right size. Once they're done with that, I will want them to travel down a ladder, and they're going to go over to the side and up here to get into the Great Hall. The new Great Hall is going to be located right here, and I'm going to set that up with a bunch of doors that only allow them to go one direction through the door, so that they have to pass through here in order to get to the places that they eat, which they're going to do every day, which will assure that they get the morale bonus. So if we have this, actually we don't need this to go down that far. Let's have it go down to like right here. This area is going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about a better way to store your food and take advantage of your shipping network. Food storage is going to be better this way for both longevity and for cleaning off any germs, so that we get less instances of food poisoning. It's not the biggest of deals if you get food poisoning, but it probably is something that you should solve. And solving it at this point, now that we have our oxygen and food and everything all stabilized for quite a long time, seems like a pretty good time to do it. Alright, we can go ahead and place our 2 spots here for tiles. Which of duplicants are asleep right now. They need to get back up here and get back to work. Who said you could take a break? Let's check the status of this. The door's not done yet, so I'm not exactly sure how big this is going to be. Let's make sure we can get this finished up here pretty soon. Then this room up here is going to be our Great Hall, so we'll start shaping this out. And I'm intentionally not building out the rest of this over here yet. I'll show you why. Once I get these 2 up, I'm going to build a little bit of an area down here that has an extra chamber kind of like in the middle. So I'm going to do something like this. And it needs to be at least a couple tiles tall. Let's see if I can get this all sized up correctly. I might have to change a couple of things here, but we'll get it. Basically what's going to happen is I'm going to have an area right here that is all dedicated for my food storage. And that's where my duplicants are going to grab their food before they go up into the Great Hall to eat it. Let's see, we actually need to drop this down a little bit right here. So we're gonna go up. I'm gonna wall this side off, by the way, because I want them to be forced to go that way, which means that they won't be able to leave out that other side. Let's check this room. Yeah, okay, there we go, nature reserve. So every time they pass through there, at least the buff for the day lasts for quite a while. They will get a buff that will... Why are you not spec'd for this? I need to get him out of there. Someone will get there eventually. A bunch of people are getting stuck, but this can happen if we're doing big projects. I'm not that worried. I'm going to need a mesh tile here. I'm going to create a mechanized airlock. This will all make sense in just a second. Get rid of all this wiring for the time being. Let me prioritize all this kind of heavily. So you can kind of see the path that we're setting up. We're going to force them to go here. They're going to go through this section, which will eventually set up with sinks so that they clean their hands before they eat. Which is going to be the best way to deal with that food poisoning. We need another door here, by the way. Ah, pressing the wrong button. There we go. Okay, and then we're just going to need a ladder for them to get up to the Great Hall. And then some kind of door to wall the other side of this off. So this whole room right here is going to be the Great Hall. And this is going to be filled with a whole bunch of places for duplicants to eat so that we can have a place to eat for everybody in the colony instead of just the handful that's there right now. This will also need to be a wall. Now the way we're going to set this up is we need a handful of buildings inside here. What I'm going to do first, and note that I have doors here. These doors will eventually be closed with a little gap right there. This gap is so that my duplicants can still reach the contents of the refrigerator, but I'm going to seal this off with a little trick where we basically use water to seal each side of this so my duplicants can still reach through it to grab the food. But the inside of this is going to be submerged in chlorine, which was the whole reason that we started using it in our ventilation system down here, or like capturing it from our ventilation system anyway. When we're shipping stuff in here, we want all the food that's going to be stored in the refrigerator, or at least for duplicant to be able to reach it, right here. So I want to place the conveyor chute right above it so that it sits on top of the refrigerator. This is also so that if I have foods that I want to store in here that don't need to go in the refrigerator, like berry sludge, for example, then it's still fine. It's still at a reachable point. So I'm going to set it up like that. I'll set up a conveyor loader here to send out anything that we might need to ship out of here. Sometimes your food will rot if it sits in the fridge for too long. So I do want to get it out of there. There's not really any way to avoid that for some types of foods. Then I'm going to need some type of gas vent to get the chlorine in there. And then I need a gas pump to get all the gases out of here that I don't want. I'm going to get those two things. We'll set this up with a gas vent. You might have a hard time getting this gas vented out of here if your base pressure is too high. So if your base pressure is more than like 2 kilograms on the tile that this exists, you're gonna have a hard time getting it out. So if you need to pump this out, but you can't actually vent it, you can set up a gas reservoir to just pump it into there instead. But we should be fine for this one. We're also gonna need some automation to be able to control all this. So I need some automation to turn this pump on and off. I'm just gonna use these regular switches. And this should probably be a habit you get into quite a bit. For most of the things that you create in the game, just hook them up to these signal switches so that you can turn them off yourself automatically if there's a reason to turn them on or off. Like say something's overheating, or you're having a problem with it functioning at a time that it's not supposed to, like if I'm not supposed to be pumping gas out of this room or something like that. Let's make sure we get these duplicants out of here. They keep getting stuck. Alright, then this room we're just going to need to fill up with all of our Great Hall stuff. We are definitely running out of metal. We need to leave a couple spaces for the other buildings that are going to make this a Great Hall. So, we're going to have to grab the same things that we did before. One of them is going to be a flower pot. And one of them is going to have to be... Where is this? I think it's in stations? No, I think it's in furniture. Well, I'm having a hard time getting this. Here we go. Water cooler. There. Now this will function as our Great Hall once we get this plant in there. And the rest of this we can get all of our sinks in. But there's one more thing we need to do. In order to create this seal, we're going to need a little bit of water on this spot. So there's a couple ways you can do this. But the easiest way to do it is just to do something like this. I'm just going to run a pipe up here. We'll eventually disconnect this. We don't necessarily need it to be all that fancy. So there we go. And again, we're going to want to put this on automation to make sure we can turn this on and off. The other two things that we need to be able to turn on and off are the doors that are going to let us both seal everything off and let us get water in and out of the places that we want to get it. So something like this. This is kind of particular, but this is intentional to have a nice setup for food for the longer stages of the game. The other thing we need in here, obviously, is power. So I want to put this up with conductive wire because I will eventually be using conductive wire everywhere. But this is an area that my duplicants are not really going to be allowed to walk into again. Otherwise, I'm going to have to vent it and repump in the chlorine every time, and I don't want to have to do that. So I'm just going to put the conductive wire in here instead. So let's get our conveyor rails hooked up here as well. We'll hook it up to the rest of the system here in just a second. And this might, again, be one of these systems that we see... What, I need to disable this building, by the way. You don't want them drinking your water if you don't have to. Let's plant something here. What's the temperature? About 25. Joya seeds are huge ranges. They can be planted pretty much everywhere. That's what I'll like to do if we have to. There we go. These duplicants can get out now. Once we get the rails in there, I will start pumping everything out. I'm going to turn this off so that the water doesn't come out at a time we want to. This video might run a little bit long, by the way, so we're just going to expect that. I'll have this all ready to go by the time it's this video's done. Let's check our printing pod here. Ooh, tofu. Let's prioritize this. I wouldn't normally do this. I just want to get it done for the video. So you don't have to overly prioritize your projects like this, but if you want to get it done, this is always a way to do it. So here we go, getting all this stuff replaced. The other thing I'm going to do, once this is done building, I'm going to start setting the directions that the duplicants are allowed to go through these doors. The other thing that I want down here, like I mentioned, is I want a bunch of sinks. And this is one of the biggest reasons why we set up the schedules the way that we did earlier, because if everyone's eating at the same time, not everyone's going to be able to wash their hands, because there's not going to be enough sinks for everybody. So I'm going to go double check my schedules and make sure we're good. We are definitely not. So Ren is going to be a afternoon sleeper because he will get bonuses if he's working at night. Lindsay, you're going to go down to the bottom, and Stinky to the middle. There. Now everyone is balanced out, which means that only 3 duplicants at a time should be trying to get to the food, or rather into the eating area at a time. So they all should have their own sinks. I'm not going to hook up all of the stuff for the sinks right now. You basically would just hook it up to the same thing that you did for your bathrooms. So just for the sake of getting this done, I'm not going to worry about that right now. It'll be hooked up the next time that we get everything going. Same thing with the shipping. The shipping, I think you get the idea. Any food that they're meant to eat, which is going to be like your any cooked food. So this is going to be berry sludge, this will be barbecue, that kind of stuff. You'll want to ship into here. Anything that's not that, you want to ship out so you can get rid of any of this algae and stuff like that. Let's get this hooked up to power, and then we'll get it all up and running so that we can call it a day on this video. For the water lock, you'll notice I have a door at the bottom so that when the water spills out, it's going to fall on both sides, but it won't get stuck inside here, which is definitely what we want. So the water should be all ready. Yep, and I'm just going to turn this on for a second and turn it back off. Like that. That's all I need. Now that I have the little bit of water there, I can close both of these doors, assuming that everything is built inside there. I think it is, so we should be good. So I'm going to close this door using the switch. I'm going to close this door using the switch. And then once our power is hooked up, I will turn on our gas pump and it'll vent it all out. And then we will connect up our chlorine to the other part. So we'll get this going. Something like that. Sure. There. Okay. So yeah, the rest of this is just going to be shipping it. I'll get the rest of this pumped out. It shouldn't take too long, and then we will have a done setup for getting all of our food and stuff there. I might as well start setting up what I'm going to be shipping to this anyway. So let's see. This one is going out, so I just want it to go into one of the chutes. This one is coming back, so I'm going to start to set this up and spec it for... Whoops, I keep pressing the wrong button. I'm going to spec it for sending any of the food that's supposed to be eaten by my duplicants. Cancel this. Shipping, conveyor bridge, there. Once this is all done, we'll set up the fridges and everything like that. You'll also want to connect your shipping over here when you get a chance, just so that anything that's supposed to be cooked will go here. Anything that is done being cooked will go here. You can kind of set that up on your own here, or I'll have it done by the next video. We did miss one thing here, so we might have to crack this open, because I forgot that we needed this little piece of the vent here, so I'm just going to open the door so they can go back in there and manage it. Worst case scenario, I'll just have to repump all this back out. It's not too big of a deal. We might want to also set up some metal or mesh tiles here, just to make sure that our carbon dioxide doesn't start pooling in this area. There we go. Now we got that set up. We can close the door again. And that water shouldn't go away. If it does, you can just turn this back on. I don't know why this is showing open, because it's clearly not. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll set up my shipping for anything that needs to go up there. So barbecue, berry sludge, cooked seafood, gristleberries, muck roots. They're not necessarily cooked, but you can't make them into anything else. So I'm just going to want to send them to my fridge. Pickled meal, spicy tofu. Anything like that that has been the product of cooking that can't be cooked anymore is what I want to send into there. I'll set up the shipping to get the rest of this stuff sent out anyway, but I think you get the idea. Now that our oxygen in there should be getting... This should be able to pump it out really fast. So once this is done, you can just turn off your pump here and turn on your vent to start letting the chlorine in, because the chlorine is now ready to start coming into this. Let me keep my duplicants busy, by the way. Sure, why not? Go have fun. You don't need to get every single piece of oxygen out of here if you don't want to wait, but it shouldn't take too much longer. You can see my vent is already getting pretty starved for any gases that are in there, so it should be done in just a sec. And once we get down to just a handful of micrograms, you can probably call that good. Eventually it'll all collapse. Things that are too, like, if there's not enough density, it'll just collapse it down into nothing. So, yeah, you can always turn this off a little bit early if you want to, but I don't want to, I just want to make sure there's nothing lingering here if we don't have to deal with it. Should only take another second. I know this is a little bit painstaking, but it is hard to keep things going at a good momentum when you're trying to juggle the video and everything. Alright, we are basically a vacuum in here, which means that we can turn off our pump. We can turn on our vent. There. Now, any food that comes in here will be submerged in chlorine, and it'll be sitting in the refrigerator if it's food that is perishable. So, I'll just mark the things that are supposed to go on the fridge. Barbecue. Cooked seafood, gristleberries, pickled meals. Muck root doesn't need to go in there. Spicy tofu will need to go in there. There you go. And then anything that you want to ship out. I will usually do this and then just uncheck edible, so I don't have to micromanage everything that's in there. There, that's our done food setup. I'll hook up our sinks so that it'll be up and running by then. The last thing we need to do is get our doors set up. The doors should only allow the duplicants to travel in one direction. So I'm setting up the doors so they're only allowed to travel left when they're on the bottom. So they'll be forced to go through the room with the nature reserve. They'll wash their hands, they'll climb up the ladder, they'll grab their food from either the refrigerator or on the ground right here. Then they'll come in here to eat, and then they'll have to leave out this door. So that's that. And we cleared out our old Great Hall. So there you go. Pretty easy, all things considered, setup for managing your food in the long term. Feel free to take this and modify it however you would like, but this build is pretty handy. Let me know if you have any questions about it, and I will definitely be reading the comments. I won't be responding to all of them, but I'll be reading them and answering what I can. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. I'll be back in a little bit with the next part. I'm not 100% sure what it will be about, so it'll be a mystery, and we'll find out when we get there. So thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.